What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome back into another one of my rookie draft prospect videos, going through my 101 through the 112 in a one quarterback rookie draft. If you missed any of the previous videos, I invite you to go back and check those ones out from my 101 through the 1.08, because this video is on my 1.09 in this class, and it is on a very polarizing prospect, somebody that does not have a very good analytical profile, at least on the surface, but film people absolutely love him. And I've toyed and gone back and forth on if I should have him at the 109. Should I have him higher? Should I have him lower? It's been really hard for me to actually place where I would put this player, but I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to stand with it right now. My 1.09, my wide receiver 5 in this rookie class is Alabama wide receiver Jaylen Waddle. So let's get into it. So Jaylen Waddle is the current 110 in one quarterback March ADP, actually being taken after Trevor Lawrence, according to ADP, even in one quarterback leagues, taken behind Trevor Lawrence and a bunch of the other players that I have already named as well. So he's right in that same range where I have him. You can actually find him being taken at the 109 or the 110 in 7 out of the 10 mock drafts done that formed that ADP. So he's right in the same range as where I have him, which made me more confident in putting him at my 1.09, because that's kind of where the market values him as well. So I mentioned that he's a pretty polarizing player. We'll get into his college stats here and kind of explain why he is a little bit of a polarizing player, at least in terms of the analytics versus film. So collegiately, freshman year was a pretty solid freshman year, 2018 season. 45 receptions, 848 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This was when he was playing with a whole mass of a bunch of players: Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devonta Smith, Jaylen Waddle, and Najee Harris was not really a thing back then. It was still Josh Jacobs. Like, this Alabama team in 2018 was absolutely insane. And so to have that type of production as a freshman, even though he was a 20-year-old freshman, it still was really great to see him coming in year one and almost having an immediate breakout age in his freshman year, putting up almost 2 yards per team pass attempt. Pretty solid overall, but unfortunately, that was the best end of year stats from Jaylen Waddle in his entire collegiate career. His sophomore season, 33 receptions, 560 yards, and 6 touchdowns, playing with basically the same cast and crew. Jerry Jeudy is still there as well, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, and then Jaylen Waddle. But just a kind of a down year for Jaylen Waddle in 2019, playing as now the 4th fiddle on the team and not really doing as well as he did in the previous 2018 season. Then it was 2020, his junior season, 28 receptions, 591 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That was in 6 games. He did get hurt in week 5 against Tennessee on the opening kickoff, and then actually did not really play all too much in the championship game, but he gets credit for playing those 2 games. So really, he put up that production, 28 receptions, 591 yards, and 4 touchdowns in about 4.5 games. So, you know, he was averaging roughly 6, 7, 8 receptions per game in those 4 games, over 100 yards. He actually never had less than 120 yards in the first 4 games of that season, until his supposed season-ending injury, like I said, on the opening kickoff against Tennessee. He actually had a combo injury of a fractured ankle and a high ankle sprain. That sounds devastating. I do not want to know what that even would remotely feel like. And it was supposed to be season-ending, but he did come back and play 26 snaps in the championship game against Ohio State, and somehow played through the pain or played through whatever he was doing, and is still then going to be expected to run at the Alabama Pro Day and actually showcase his 4.3 or potentially sub 4.3 40-yard dash speed. But like I said, 4 straight 100-yard games to start off the year. Was actually on pace to outproduce Devonta Smith, his teammate and Heisman Trophy winner in 2020. That's how insane production Jaylen Waddle was on last year with Mac Jones, even across from the future Heisman Trophy winner. So he definitely showcased his talents and his abilities when he was not behind also guys like Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs he was the 1B or potentially even the 1A in that Alabama offense. And that is really where a lot of the arguments and debate and context around Jaylen Waddle's analytical profile really comes into play. So as I mentioned, the analytics on here, he does have some holes. There's really nothing that, can't be totally explained away by injury. For instance, he is an older prospect. Like I mentioned, he was a 20-year-old freshman. So he's 22 years old coming into the NFL. That already, you don't really want to see 22, 23-year-olds in their first rookie season. You want them to be, 20 coming into the draft and then turn 21 by the time that they get to the NFL. Additionally, he does not on paper have a breakout age. He was really close to a 19-year-old breakout age at a 20% threshold back in his freshman season, which actually would have been extremely impressive given that he was, behind that whole entire cast and crew of all the other Alabama wide receivers. To have a 19-year-old freshman breakout year, let alone on that team, would have been really impressive. And then additionally, as I mentioned, 30% 21-year-old breakout age in 2020 if he would have stayed healthy because of the pace that he was on, an absolute tear going through 2020. And if you look at, this is thanks to Mike Me Up on Twitter. If you don't follow him, I suggest and highly suggest that you go do. And he does awesome YouTube content as well. But he stated that pre-injury in 2020, he had a 35% market share and over 4+ yards per team pass attempt, which is absolutely insane type of production from Jaylen Waddle. So that is really the context that is being needed around Jaylen Waddle's analytical profile, is that, unlike Henry Ruggs, a lot of people, myself included, have made that comparison between Ruggs and Jaylen Waddle now this year, just these kind of speedster hyped up players because they played for Alabama, but they don't have a breakout age. They didn't really produce in college like Jerry Jeudy or Devonta Smith, and to Jaylen Waddle's credit, he is not Henry Ruggs, right? Henry Ruggs had an abysmal analytical profile, even with context applied. And that is not Jaylen Waddle. That is not what we saw. We never really saw him break out. We never saw him really do anything significant like what we did with Jaylen Waddle in 2020. And so that 4+ yards per team pass attempt is still bonkers. And I'm reading that in my notes, and it's absolutely insane that Jaylen Waddle was able to pull that off. He is a bit undersized at 5'10", 182 pounds. Not terribly, but he is a bit undersized. If you remember from a couple videos ago, Rondale Moore was 5'9", 180. So both players are actually very similar in terms of their height, weight, BMI profile. Both players actually have been comped to a Tyreek Hill type of NFL player at the next level in this class. And so both of them are actually really interesting candidates and prospects in this class, and, could kind of be outliers in a sense, even though Rondale Moore has the age-adjusted production in his freshman year that I'd mentioned in the video. Jaylen Waddle doesn't necessarily have that, but he has showcased that same ability, that same talent, that same speed and skill that it can translate to the NFL. When you look at Jaylen Waddle in terms of other Alabama wide receivers, you can see that his profile is not necessarily as fantastic as, certainly not Amari Cooper or Julio Jones, not even as fantastic as Devonta Smith, though if he did stay healthy in 2020, I would venture to guess that Jaylen Waddle and Devonta Smith would be almost neck and neck in this wide receiver class in terms of how people view both of them, rather than a lot of people view Smith one way and Waddle some other way. Waddle would look a lot better with that breakout age in there, but what he does have going for him is he will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Just like Henry Ruggs was last year, Jaylen Waddle will be this year because he has that potential sub 4.3 speed. He had that insane production in 2020 in 4 games. He is an Alabama wide receiver. The NFL really likes and biased against the SEC and Alabama specifically. So he is going to get first-round draft capital in the NFL draft. And that alone, given the hit rates for wide receivers just off of draft capital, would make him a 50-50 shot at the NFL level. And if you include his potential 21-year-old 30% breakout age, that raises his production and his hit rate a little bit up to being more than just a 50-50 shot, almost upwards to the 55 and 60% potential hit rate for Jaylen Waddle. And that's not what we saw from Henry Ruggs at all. So that is kind of where the comparisons and the analysis between the two stop and end right there. So it's kind of at this point where you have to make your own decision for what you believe Jaylen Waddle is and where you actually believe he should go in your rookie drafts. There are a lot of people who have Jaylen Waddle as a top 3 wide receiver in this class. You know, I'm not really on board with that, obviously, with him being my wide receiver 5. I think there are other prospects who are safer, but Jaylen Waddle definitely has one of the highest ceilings in this class at wide receiver. And if you can get him as a later top 5 guy or potentially outside the top 5, I'm definitely on board with taking the stab and the dart throw on a player like him and his tape and his analytical profile, just in case if he actually does hit, right? Like if he does hit, I think he'll explode. I think he'll do really well. I'm not going to say he's Tyreek Hill. I think that's really dangerous to be able to just put all these expectations on this rookie, this kid coming into the NFL and just telling him, all right, you're an automatic top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, not even in just this class, in the NFL. And I think that's really dangerous to call him the next Tyreek Hill. But if there was a prospect who could potentially do Tyreek Hill things, I think it could be Jaylen Waddle. I think it also could be Rondale Moore. But Jaylen Waddle has that similar profile and potential in the NFL. So that is why I'm comfortable with having him at my 1.09. There are other analytical darlings and analytical wide receivers that I really, really like, and one that we'll get to by the end of this series that I really, really, really like. But the problem with a lot of those guys is I don't see the first round draft capital, and I could potentially see, you know, 3rd or 4th round draft capital for a couple of the others. The other ones not being the one that I'm going to hit on later, but the other ones being Dyami Brown, Terrace Marshall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Elijah Moore. You know, a bunch of those guys are in this kind of mix of wide receivers that with a 2nd round draft capital, you know, their analytical profile would look really, really nice, especially compared to Jaylen Waddle. But if they fall down below, you know, into the 3rd, into the 4th round, that's going to be starting to where you see Jaylen Waddle's profile and his draft value rise significantly in rookie drafts, and especially being above a bunch of those guys. So that is why I'm just comfortable having Jaylen Waddle here at my 1.09, because I expect him to be a very solid player and being drafted in the 1st round at the NFL draft. So when we're talking about landing spots for Jaylen Waddle, there are a bunch of teams in this, you know, 108 through the 120 range, and a bunch of teams that I've already mentioned in other previous videos that basically just need playmakers. They need wide receivers. I mentioned them in other videos, and I don't really want to go much more in detail into those teams. Those teams specifically being the New York Giants, the LA Chargers, the New England Patriots. If he lands on any of those 3 teams, it's wheels up. We're looking good, because those teams need playmakers. They need speed as well, which Jaylen Waddle can provide. And those are just 3 very, very solid landing spots that could definitely boost Jaylen Waddle's value and draft cost in rookie drafts. There are 2 other teams that I think he could really succeed at if he were to fall outside of the top 15. Actually, the first one being the Arizona Cardinals at 116. This is a team that desperately needs some speed. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They have Christian Kirk, who I think is solid and has speed as well, but he's much more of a slot wide receiver kind of player. That's how he succeeds. He can't succeed on the deep routes, but I really, really think that the Arizona Cardinals could use a lot more speed on that offense. Larry Fitzgerald could potentially be retiring this year, maybe next year. We haven't really gotten word yet on his outlook officially, but with him being gone and it's really just DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, I really think that team could do well with some speed. Kyler Murray specifically could do well with some speed. He has a really nice deep ball as well. And I think if you just get more weapons for Kyler Murray and for Cliff Kingsbury in that offense with that pace of play that they provide, I think that he could have a nice target share in Arizona. Maybe not immediately, but I could see it happening down the road for the Arizona Cardinals at 116. Then secondly, the final team that I have here is the Miami Dolphins at 18 overall. This is another team that could really use some playmakers on the outside. They have Devontae Parker. They have Preston Williams, who a lot of people really, really love, myself included, but he's gotten hurt each of the past 2 seasons, and he is an undrafted free agent, which really hurts his, profile in his case, at least in the NFL's eyes. And so if they can invest in a rookie speedster like Jaylen Waddle, an explosive playmaker who can come in and be across from Devonta Smith, across from Mike Gesicki as well, and another wide receiver and weapon for Tua Tagovailoa, his former teammate actually. I think that could be a really amazing fit for the Miami Dolphins and for Jaylen Waddle to insert some explosiveness and some speed into that offense. And Waddle can come in and immediately have a very nice target share as well, in my opinion. So those are the two other teams, in addition to a lot of the other teams I've mentioned in previous videos that really just need a playmaker or some sort of speed wide receiver asset. And so if he lands on any of those really 5 or 6 teams in that 10 through 18 range, I think it's going to be very solid for Jaylen Waddle's prospects in the NFL. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching today's video. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the DLF YouTube channel, ring that notifications bell to be notified every single time that a new video drops. More of these videos as we finish out my first round, more mock draft videos, trade shows, Commissioner Chronicles, Man Can Chill, all that good stuff is coming your way through the DLF YouTube channel. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time.